Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And one of my subscribers has linked me a video from Vince, aka V-Shred, aka V-Shrunk, who, well, I used to call him V-Shrunk. We're going to get to that in a minute. Who has put out a video about a bicep and tricep workout for bigger, thicker arms. Well, his arms are looking bigger and thicker out of nowhere. So let me go ahead and put on my +5 How to Speechcraft and let's talk about this. All right, guys. Normally, the model who the V-Shred company hired to do these videos, who's known as Vince, we don't know his real name, may or may not be Vince. They always have him in here, and a lot of people forget. This specific company, if you kind of look into their history, it's basically just a supplement and workout program company that kicks out generic bodybuilding magazine type information that they hired Vince to be a model and a spokesman for their channel. It's not actually his channel, and it's not hard to figure that out when you look at the business model, and that's fine. So they hired this guy who basically reads from a script, who was hired for his looks, because he does kind of have that chiseled jawline and everything, and he's in shape. But kind of the things I've pointed out in the past, that doesn't mean that he uses the stuff that's in here, and I've gone through some of the stuff on this channel as far as the good and the bad. And he's got this video up for an arm workout. But here's the thing. He has, inside of a month, put on 10 to 12 pounds of what appears to be muscle. Now, it's not necessarily all muscle. We're going to get into super compensation a little bit. But 10 to 12 pounds all ripped. Like there's no body fat gain. There's no body fat gain there. Now, here's the thing. People always ask me silly stuff like, what do you mean when you guys who've been around the game know when people go on or not? How do you tell if someone's a natty or not? Well, there you're looking at it. Go look at any of his videos from last month, wearing those same tank top or sleeveless shirts or whatever, and look right there at that opening scene. Okay. Do you notice the roundness and the fullness? He has put on all this lean mass with no fat gain. And if you notice, everything kind of has a swollen look to his muscles overall. Look at his delts. His delts have filled out more. They were already kind of capped and lean. They just filled out of nowhere. And everything looks a little bit like a balloon. And I'm not saying all gear does that, because all gear doesn't. A lot of wet compounds do. But really lean guys who go on wet compounds and stay on a clean diet, they just fill out like that. That's what happens. So you notice that, again, the delts filled out. There's all of a sudden more striations just appearing out of nowhere in the front delt. The delts got rounder dramatically. His arms are thicker and fuller. Like everything just got thicker instantly. And everything looks, like you look at it, it's almost like it looks almost filled with water. Meaning it actually is. That's actually what happens. So what you're seeing is some transient storage factor, some extra muscle glycogen being stored at higher rates in all of his muscle tissue, which draws in extra water, and it just fills everything out. Notice that his face, the guy normally has a fairly chiseled jawline, and that's the reason they hired him as a spokesman. The guy's got kind of the model jawline, right? He's got a masculine jawline. He always has. And that's one of the things I would tell a lot of you guys. I mean, that's honestly going to get you more women than working on your six-pack. But I digress. Over to the point. You notice that it got even more pronounced. Okay? He already had a masculine jawline. Well, when guys go growing stuff for a little while, their masculine jawline will become more pronounced. So he's got that androgen face going on with a bunch of extra muscle that appeared almost out of nowhere. Now, we don't know how far apart these videos are filmed, because people don't realize with me, a lot of times you guys are looking at training footage that could be 2 months old in a video that was filmed 5 weeks ago, like when I do some of my informative videos. So you never know how far apart they are. They could be spaced further than we realize with the uploads, because, again, this is a model they hired. We don't know the frequency that they really film or upload or anything else. So but you look at all that and you just see those very quick gains. Everything looks just rounder and fuller. It's not just muscle growth. There is a change in the fullness of everything. The androgen face, like that is a sign of someone who went on a little while ago and has been on a while and is just now finally all starting to kick in and accumulate. Because previously Vince, had a little bit of muscle, but he was not what I would call a big guy. He was a lean guy who had the swimmer's physique, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, this guy's put on 10, 12 pounds. 10 to 12 pounds of what looks like zero fat gain, like no fat gain with it, with an androgen face. So when guys say, how do you tell? Someone goes, oh, well, there's your dead giveaway. I mean, that one is so clear cut and dry and obvious. And it's like the guy's basically a fitness model and then a fitness spokesman for a living. Now, people say, is that a fake natty? No, not a fake natty. I've never seen this guy make videos claiming that he is a natty or a lifetime natty. So that's largely irrelevant. But that's the point. Now, let's come over to what he said a little bit about the training. Because here's what some of it's redundant. They're doing all this stuff saying, look, I'm going to have you do 3 different exercises for biceps and triceps. Well, I'm going to say that's excessive. Yes, people are going to say, well, Jason, you're a power lifter. It's like, yeah, but power lifters need bigger arms. We need to maximize our tricep size. Same thing, bicep size supports your bench press out of the bottom. We care about arm size. I do direct arm work these days. All right, you guys see me do up to 10 sets of curls and 10 sets of triceps every week in addition to all my large volumes of pulling and pressing. So I do this stuff. But the point we come over to is that he kind of felt like we need to hit all these different angles and we need multiple exercises. Biceps and triceps are not particularly complicated muscle groups. You don't need large numbers of different exercises. You really don't. And we're not talking about competitive bodybuilding here, because I can assure you almost none of you are competitive bodybuilders, right? I have over 100,000 followers. There are not 100,000 bodybuilders on the face of the earth. And he's got millions, over 1 million subscribers. There are not 1 million bodybuilders on the face of the earth. There's a few thousand crossing the entire globe. There's a few thousand bodybuilders. So, over to the point with that. You're not competitive bodybuilders. I understand that sometimes a competitor for peaking for a show might need to work multiple different angles in a muscle with a smaller movement. The majority of your arm size is coming from your pulling and your pressing. All right, your benches, your dips, your overhead press, your rows, your chin-ups, your pull-ups. That's where most of your arm size is coming from. Now, is that to say that you don't benefit from doing a little bit of smaller movements? I'm not saying that at all. For a novice, you don't, and let me make that clear. The research is pretty clear on that. Novice lifters don't gain extra muscle from training their arms directly. They don't. That's what the studies generally confirm. As you get more advanced, though, I will be the first to admit that, hey, maybe your triceps do need some extra supplemental work because you can only handle so many sets of bench pressing, right? And most of us understand that. Getting your maximum recoverable volume on a tricep, and in some cases getting the minimum volume that you need to get good growth through the week from just bench pressing for your triceps can't always be done. In some cases it can. For others, it can't, because you can only handle so much volume of bench pressing, so many heavy reps of bench pressing. And you get to a point to where your chest starts reaching its maximum recoverable volume because it is more chest dominant, right? It works the triceps, but it does work the chest more. So you can get to a threshold to where something like the triceps aren't getting quite enough work, but your chest can't handle any more work. Well, when you get to that threshold and you know that your triceps need more direct work to grow, because even as a strength athlete, well, those bigger triceps are going to help your bench press. If you're chasing physique, you damn well better have big triceps. I mean, be honest about it. All you guys who are saying, hey man, I want to look jacked, I want to look good, well, yeah, triceps the biggest muscle in the arm. Might be a good idea to do some triceps. I'm not going to argue against that. There comes a point of where some of that is common sense. But when it comes down to the functions of these muscles, you do realize most of these heads of these muscles get hammered pretty hard on the big movements. You need to be coming in and saying, hey, where do I need to put the extra work? And there is no way you need 3 different exercises to do that. You should probably, and this is what I usually stand by, look, find one sort of curl for the bicep. In some cases, because of the pronation and supination of the wrist, maybe your radial brachialis and stuff might need more work. You might be able to find 2 sorts of curls that you would benefit from. Triceps, okay, maybe the same thing. Maybe, usually 1. In some rare cases for an extreme tricep weakness, maybe 2 different movements, maybe. And then work those and work on performance on those, right? That's what you need to do. And get good at them. And when you stall on them, change to a different exercise. Not that complicated. You don't need that many movements, and people way overhype this stuff. Now, when it comes over to the rep ranges, that's kind of the funny thing. He's saying, oh, when I used to do really heavy on them, I didn't make arm gains. Well, of course you'd make arm gains. Now, you do need to get as strong as possible in your big movements. And so is that to say that you can use a little bit higher reps and lighter weight on the smaller movements if you've built the strength base on the big movements? Yeah, that's fine. That's reasonable. But to say, well, maybe I got a lot more arm growth going up to 15s, well, I question that seriously. And I'm not saying for maximum growth doing some phases of really high reps for a smaller muscle is always a bad thing. I don't want people to get that twisted. Don't get that twisted. That is not what I'm saying. But I'm saying as a long-term progression protocol, absolutely not. Maybe a 3-week block of doing 12 to 15 on some of these might be warranted. You know what, for 3 weeks. But as a long-term training modality, and I know there are metabolite studies showing, well, you get similar metabolites from doing those to failure. Well, yeah, you got to do them to failure. And number two, there is some of the evidence that shows that those gains are very, very fleeting, meaning they don't really last once you drop the rep range back down. It's temporary. It's a lot of it's swelling, a lot of it's inflammation, a lot of it's water. And then we get into this debate of myofibrillar versus sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. No. For a drug-free lifter focusing on 15 rep sets, even for smaller muscles, is a year-round priority. Probably not ideal. You have to get stronger on them. You're going to have to do some tension work. You're probably going to need to do some 8s. You're probably going to need to do some 10s. In fact, that's where I would say even for these smaller muscles, if you're looking for lasting, real muscle growth, not glycogen supercompensation, not triglyceride storage, not water weight, not inflammation, but actual direct muscle fiber thickness over time, you probably do need to get really strong in the 8 to 10 rep range as the majority of your work for muscles like that. And it's not to say you can't come through and run phases with the lighter work. That's fine. But it needs to be limited to small phases if you really want lasting progress. And you do have to focus on progressive overload. Right? You do have to focus on progressive overload through a full range of motion with relatively good form. And therein lay the difference. I don't mean cheating the heaviest weight you can up for a half rep. I'm talking about building real strength. Because building real strength in those muscles is what gives you size. And he kind of said, oh, I got stronger, but I didn't get bigger. That's not how it works. No, you cheated the weight up more. Size and strength go hand in hand. When you see over time a direct increase in strength on any basic lift that doesn't let you cheat, a measurable increase in strength, you will have a proportionate increase in muscle fiber thickness. That's reality. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.